When your body stops listening. Frank stood up from his favorite armchair like he did every morning, but today his left leg felt numb. He stumbled slightly. No rug, no spill, just a strange weakness he couldn't explain. He looked down at his own body, as if expecting it to give him an answer. Most people think memory loss or dementia only begins in their 70s or 80s, that it's something far away, something they don't need to worry about yet. But what if I told you? The first signs of dementia could begin in your shaft 40s, or even your 30s, silently changing your brain before you notice a single symptom. What if those small lapses, misplacing your keys, forgetting a name, feeling unusually tired, weren't just normal aging, but quiet signals from your brain asking for help? Frank is 73. He lives alone, like many older Americans do. He still drives, he still cooks, but lately he's noticed strange things. He walks into the kitchen and forgets why. He wakes up at 3 a.m., unsure of the day or time. Sometimes the cereal ends up in the fridge. And worse, he started losing confidence in his own body. His balance feels off, his grip isn't as strong. But here's the truth no one talks about. Dementia doesn't start with memory. It starts with the body. It starts with small, almost invisible changes, sleep problems, muscle weakness, mood shifts that most people ignore. And when you ignore them, the disease gets louder. Today, over 70 million people worldwide live with dementia, and that number is expected to double in the next few decades. But by the time most people are diagnosed, the damage is already done. That's why understanding these early warning signs isn't just helpful, it could change your life. Here's the good news. You don't need a prescription to fight back. Simple foods, gentle habits, small changes in your day-to-day life, these can protect your brain and slow cognitive decline. So if you've been waking up tired, feeling unsteady on your feet, forgetting things that used to be second nature, stay with me. Because over the next few minutes, you'll discover the 6 earliest signs of dementia that doctors often miss, and the simple daily actions you can take to fight back. Frank's story could be yours. But it doesn't have to end the same way. You still have time. And all it takes is understanding what your brain's been trying to tell you all along. When words start to slip away. Linda used to be the kind of woman who could light up a room with her stories. Birthdays, recipes, old family tales, her words painted pictures. But lately, something's changed. At breakfast last week, she looked at her granddaughter and said, "Pass me the round thing, the scoop." She was trying to say spoon. Everyone laughed it off. "Oh, Grandma, you're just getting old." But Linda didn't laugh. She smiled politely, then went quiet. Deep inside, she felt something no one else did. Fear. Struggling to find the right words, losing your train of thought mid-sentence, hesitating in conversation. These may seem like small things, but they can be early signs of dementia, and they often appear years before any official diagnosis. Most people assume it's just senior moments. But that's not what's happening. What's really going on is that the parts of the brain responsible for language and memory retrieval, especially the left temporal and frontal lobes, are starting to struggle. Linda noticed she was avoiding conversations more and more. Not because she didn't want to talk, but because she was afraid of getting stuck. Afraid of that silence that follows when a word just won't come. This isn't just about memory. It's about confidence. When your words don't come easily, you start pulling away. You stop speaking up in family gatherings. You let others do the talking. And slowly, you become invisible in your own life. But here's what the doctors don't always tell you. Language loss isn't final. While there's no full reversal, research shows that with speech therapy, word games, and regular social engagement, the brain can build new connections, even in older age. And best of all, you don't need medication to get started. Something as simple as reading aloud for 10 minutes a day or calling an old friend just to chat can help reignite those pathways. Simple foods that support brain health, like blueberries, walnuts, and omega-3 rich fish, can also boost verbal function. Linda started small. She played word puzzles on her tablet each morning while drinking tea. She began writing one memory a day in a journal, and gradually, the words started to return. Loss of joy, and why it's not just depression. Uncle Ray used to love his morning walks. Every day, right after breakfast, he'd lace up his sneakers, grab his cane, and make his way down Maple Street. He'd wave at neighbors, stop to admire the rose bushes, maybe chat with the mailman for a minute or two. But then, he just stopped. At first, his daughter thought he was tired. Maybe the weather was too cold. But the days got warmer, and still, Ray stayed in. He sat on his recliner for hours, flipping through channels but never watching. His beloved gardening tools gathered dust. The lawn, once his pride, was overgrown. "It's just age," someone said. "He's probably depressed," another suggested. But what if it wasn't depression? What if it was something deeper, something more permanent? Apathy, or the loss of motivation and interest in things you once enjoyed, is one of the most overlooked early signs of dementia. Unlike depression, it doesn't come with sadness or crying. It's quieter. It feels like nothing. Uncle Ray wasn't sad. He wasn't angry, he just felt empty. Like life had turned the volume down and no one told him how to turn it back up. What's happening inside the brain is profound. The parts that regulate emotion, drive, and reward, areas tied to dopamine and serotonin, begin to shut down. The things that used to bring joy don't light up the same way. And slowly, motivation fades without a clear reason. This kind of emotional flatness often appears years before memory loss. And because it looks so ordinary, like a mood swing or laziness, it often gets ignored. But here's the hope. Even though the brain is changing, it still responds to stimulation. Music, sunshine, social interaction, purposeful movement. All of these send signals that the brain still craves meaning, still wants to feel something. Ray's daughter didn't push. She invited. She played his favorite Elvis song while making breakfast. She asked him to help water the plants, not all of them, just the tomatoes. She brought his old gardening hat, the one with the sweat stains and the little American flag pin. And one morning, Ray followed her outside. He didn't say much, but he sat in the sun, a small shovel in his hand, gently patting the dirt around a new flower pot. It was the first time in weeks his eyes had a spark. You don't need a prescription to awaken joy. You just need a reason to step outside. A smell that triggers a memory. A song that reminds you who you are. Restless nights, what your sleep might be trying to tell you. It started with little things. Diane began waking up at 3 a.m., unsure if it was night or morning. She would wander the hallway, open the fridge, stare blankly, then return to bed, wide awake. Sometimes she had vivid dreams, other times she sat up, heart pounding, unsure of what just happened. At first, her son thought it was anxiety. Her doctor said, "Well, it's normal at your age." But Diane knew something deeper was wrong. Because it wasn't just about losing sleep, it was about losing rest and slowly losing trust in her own mind. Sleep disturbances are one of the earliest signs of cognitive decline, before memory fades, before words slip. The brain often shows its first warning through nighttime chaos, insomnia, waking frequently, daytime exhaustion, even acting out dreams. And no, it's not just from getting older. There's something else happening inside. During deep sleep, the brain works like a cleaning crew. It flushes out harmful proteins, like beta amyloid, one of the key culprits in Alzheimer's disease. But when sleep is fragmented or shallow, that cleanup never happens, and these toxic proteins begin to build up. Diane had no idea her restless nights were affecting her brain health. She only knew that every morning felt heavier than the last. She would forget small things. Turn off the stove, then turn it on again. Repeat the same story to her neighbor. Feel confused in the middle of a sentence. But when her sleep improved, everything changed. She didn't take sleeping pills. Instead, she made simple shifts, turning off screens 2 hours before bed, drinking chamomile tea instead of wine, taking short walks at sunset, adding magnesium-rich foods like almonds and leafy greens to her dinner. She even started using a white noise machine, just the sound of ocean waves, soft and steady, to soothe her brain into rest. And slowly, her nights became calm again. No prescriptions needed, just small, deliberate habits, paired with the belief that she still had power over her own body. The strength in your hands and what it reveals about your brain. Frank sat at the kitchen table, a jar of strawberry jam in front of him. He gripped the lid, twisted hard. Nothing. His hands, once strong enough to carry lumber, now trembled just trying to open breakfast. He laughed it off. These jars are getting tighter. But deep inside, he felt it. Something wasn't right. For decades, we've thought dementia begins in the mind, with forgetfulness, confusion, slipping memory. But science is revealing a different truth. The earliest signs often appear in the body, and one of the clearest? Grip strength. Researchers in Australia studied over 1,000 women in their 70s. They found that those with weaker hand strength were twice as likely to develop dementia. Why? Because muscles don't just move us, they connect us to the brain, the nerves, the entire system of awareness, balance, and control. When your hands weaken, it's not just about jars and bottle caps. It's about neural communication breaking down. Frank noticed more than just his grip. His steps were smaller. He shuffled without realizing. His arms didn't swing like they used to. Even holding a fork sometimes felt awkward. But here's the hopeful part. You can rebuild that strength. And when you do, your brain benefits too. Strength training, even gentle resistance bands or lifting small household items, increases blood flow to the brain. It boosts a powerful protein called BDNF, which acts like fertilizer for your neurons. It reduces inflammation. And best of all, it restores your sense of control over both body and mind. Frank didn't join a gym. He started with soup cans, 5 minutes a day. Slow, deliberate movements. He stretched while brushing his teeth. He did heel raises at the sink. He also added more brain-loving proteins to his plate. Eggs, lentils, a bit of salmon each week. No pills, no complicated regimens, just food and movement, simple things he could do on his own. And slowly, his hands stopped shaking. One morning, he opened the jam jar without even thinking about it. A world that feels off, how dementia alters your senses before your memory. Linda stood in her kitchen, staring at the coffee pot. The familiar scent that once welcomed her each morning was gone. She brought the mug to her nose, breathed in deeply. Nothing. No warmth. No comfort. Just steam. Later that day, she stepped outside and heard her neighbors laughing. But instead of joy, the sound felt sharp, too loud, too chaotic. Like someone had turned the volume up too high on a life she no longer felt part of. For many people, the earliest changes of dementia don't begin with forgetting names or getting lost. They begin with something much subtler. A shift in how you experience the world. You might notice smells fading, like flowers, cooking, or coffee. Tastes changing, making favorite meals seem bland. Sounds becoming overwhelming, like crowds or background music. Depth perception issues, making it harder to judge stairs or curbs. Or a growing feeling that things around you just feel off. These aren't random quirks. They're signs that the brain's sensory processing systems are under stress, especially in areas tied to smell, sound, and spatial awareness. And while it might feel like just an inconvenience, maybe my hearing's going, maybe this food's just not seasoned right, the truth is deeper. These sensory changes are often early markers of conditions like Alzheimer's or Lewy body dementia. Linda didn't know why her favorite pasta tasted like cardboard, why her clothes didn't smell fresh anymore, why the supermarket felt like a battlefield of noise and light. She started avoiding public places, stopped cooking, ate less, but then she read something that changed her approach. She learned that smell and taste are directly connected to memory. That cooking with herbs like rosemary and basil, rich in aroma, can stimulate parts of the brain tied to cognition. That wearing a familiar perfume can bring comfort. That simple earplugs in crowded places can reduce overwhelm and improve confidence. She began gently training her senses again, lighting a vanilla candle before bed, squeezing a lemon each morning to wake up her smell receptors, chewing slowly, noticing texture and flavor, taking short walks in nature, listening to birds instead of traffic. No prescriptions needed, just gentle reminders that her body and her brain were still capable of feeling connected. When time slips away and you lose track of more than just the clock. It was 2:17 a.m. Diane picked up the phone and called her daughter. "Sweetheart, are you coming to take me grocery shopping?" On the other end, silence. Her daughter's voice cracked slightly. "Mom, it's the middle of the night." Diane looked out the window. The streetlights were on. The world was quiet. And still, in her mind, it was morning. Forgetting what day it is happens to everyone once in a while. But when time itself begins to lose shape, When mornings feel like evenings or decades collapse into minutes, it's a sign that something deeper may be happening. One of the earliest and most confusing symptoms of dementia is temporal disorientation, a loss of sense of time. It starts small. You miss an appointment, you forget if you've already eaten. But over time, it grows. You wake up at midnight thinking it's breakfast. You believe something that happened 20 years ago happened yesterday. You forget that a loved one has passed and wonder why they haven't called. And with that confusion comes something even harder: fear. Diane started writing notes to herself. Sticky reminders. Today is Tuesday. Take meds at 9 a.m. Maggie passed in 2019. But she would still forget. Sometimes, she would prepare dinner at 10 in the morning and wonder why no one was home to eat it. She wasn't just losing track of time. She was losing the thread that held her reality together. The brain's hippocampus, the part that stores and sequences time-based memory, is one of the first regions affected in Alzheimer's disease. And when it falters, the mind starts to drift between past and present, like a radio between stations. Sometimes clear, sometimes static, sometimes lost. But there is still hope. Even when time feels out of reach, structure can bring it back. Diane's daughter helped create a daily rhythm. Morning light every day by 7 a.m. to reset her internal clock. Meals at the same hour, not skipped, not rushed. A simple printed calendar with photos of family next to important dates. Familiar routines, folding laundry while listening to Sinatra, watering the plants after lunch. No screens before bed, only quiet. Diane still got confused, but the fear faded because the world started to make sense again, slowly, gently, in rhythms her body could trust. And with that trust came peace. Food, movement, and the healing routine, no pills needed. Linda used to rely on sleeping pills, one to help her fall asleep, another to help her stay asleep, a third to quiet the anxiety that buzzed in her chest every evening after dinner. But one day, she forgot if she had already taken them. She took a second pill, and that night, she didn't recognize her own reflection in the mirror. It was the wake-up call she didn't expect, but desperately needed. She sat with her daughter the next morning, hands trembling over her coffee mug. "I don't want to live like this," she whispered. "I want to feel normal again. I want my brain back." And that's when everything changed. Because Linda discovered something many people still don't realize. The brain doesn't just need medicine. It needs nourishment. It needs rhythm. It needs movement. And the best part? No prescriptions needed. Doctors had warned her about memory loss, but no one had told her that the right foods combined with small daily habits could protect and even revive brain function. She started simple. Just 2 small changes. A salad every evening with dark leafy greens, olive oil, and walnuts. A 10-minute walk around the block right after lunch, rain or shine. Then she added blueberries in the morning. Swapped white bread for whole grain. Began dancing slowly to old music while folding laundry. She didn't follow a strict diet. She didn't count calories. She followed clarity, and it began to follow her back. Within 2 weeks, she noticed her sleep deepen. Her thoughts felt less foggy. She started remembering things without looking them up, and her confidence, the quiet kind, the kind that builds inside your bones, returned. Here's what's happening inside when you do the same. Foods rich in omega-3s, like salmon, reduce brain inflammation. Leafy greens, like kale and spinach, fuel the brain with folate and vitamin K. Berries boost memory by increasing blood flow to memory centers. And regular light movement increases a natural protein called BDNF, often called Miracle-Gro, for your neurons. None of this requires a prescription. It doesn't need to be expensive. You don't have to buy anything with a fancy label or enroll in a program. You already have everything you need, in your kitchen, in your feet, in your choices. Linda now sleeps through the night, not because of a pill, but because her body finally trusts the rhythm she created. There's something remarkable about the human brain. Even when words fade, even when time unravels, even when names slip through the cracks of memory, love remains. That's what Diane's daughter noticed one afternoon, sitting beside her mother on the porch. Diane had forgotten what day it was. She called her granddaughter by the wrong name. She couldn't remember what they had for lunch, even though she'd made it. But then, Her daughter held her hand, and Diane looked up, eyes suddenly clear, and said, "You always had the softest hands, just like when you were little." It wasn't a sentence from memory, it was a feeling, alive, true, and untouched by the fog. Because here's what science is finally starting to confirm. Even as dementia takes hold of logic, time, and language, the emotional memory, the part of the brain that remembers love, connection, safety, remains resilient, often until the very end. That's why the choices we make today matter so much, not just to protect memory, but to protect identity, to protect the people we love, including ourselves. You don't need a PhD to defend your brain. You don't need expensive supplements or complicated programs. You just need simple foods that fuel your mind, gentle routines that anchor your day, purposeful movement that tells your brain, we're still here, we're still trying. You've met Frank, who rebuilt his strength with soup cans and patience. You've walked with Diane, who found peace in morning light. You've listened to Linda, who traded pills for leafy greens and slow dancing in the kitchen. And you've heard Ray, who didn't need words to remember joy. He just needed to feel soil in his hands. Their stories are not unique. They are yours. They are ours. You might forget where you left your keys. You might forget what day it is. But if you still remember the sound of a loved one's laughter, if your heart still warms when someone takes your hand, dementia doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in like a quiet fog, settling into the corners of memory. But just like morning light can cut through the mist, the small choices you make today, you don't need a pill. You don't need someone to come and save you. What you need is a little patience, a little understanding, and a little love for your own body, your own mind, your own journey. And now I want to hear from you. Type 1 if you've ever woken up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, unsure of what time it is. Type 2 if you've ever felt afraid to walk across the room without something to hold on to. Type 3 if someone you love is starting to forget and you're searching for hope. Leave your number in the comments. Not just for us, but for others who may be silently struggling, wondering if they're the only one. And if this video made you think of someone, send it to them right now. You might be the hand they remember when the world gets quiet, because the brain remembers love. Let's help it remember you. If this video made you feel understood, please hit subscribe. Each week we'll bring you thoughtful, gentle, and truly useful content to support your health, your memory, and your peace of mind. You are not alone, and memory isn't the only thing that keeps us alive. It's the love you continue to give every single day. We'll see you in the next video.